All right, today we're talking about the urinary system. Okay, so share screen. Okay, the urinary system. The important function of the kidneys. Okay, so the first thing is to filter many liters of fluid from the blood. Okay, we take the blood, we filter out the bad stuff, we get rid of the metabolic waste, we get rid of the toxins, we get rid of excess water out of the body. Okay, the major three waste products are the nitrogenous compounds, urea, uric acid, and creatinine. These are byproducts of protein metabolism, and we have to get rid of them, or else if it builds up in our bloodstream, it becomes toxic very quickly. Okay, so we filter a lot of blood on average. Okay, and when you're resting, about 1/5 to 1/4 of your blood supply goes to the kidneys. That's how much stuff there is. Okay, and because so much blood goes there, the kidneys, in addition to filtering all that stuff, it's going to monitor everything. So it's going to maintain the chemical consistency. It's going, if there's not enough water, it's going to concentrate the urine. If there's too much water, it's going to pour out some more like excess urine, etc., etc. Okay, so the four organs are here. Okay, so kidneys, ureter, urinary bladder, urethra. Okay, the kidneys are red brown in color. They're retroperitoneal, which means they're behind the peritoneum, which means the best way to get to the kidneys is actually from the back. Okay, the hilum, the blah blah, renal fascia. Okay, so here are the kidneys. Okay, there's a capsule that surrounds the kidneys. This is to prevent infections. So if it's infecting the kidney, at least that's just the kidney, and the infection will spread from the kidneys out. Okay, the kidneys, you can see from here, they're not extremely well protected. Okay, so what else protects them is actually a layer of fat around the kidneys. Okay. All right, so the first thing you have to know is the parts of the kidney. So if you take a kidney and you take a frontal section through them, okay, here's the frontal section through them, okay? The kidney is divided into parts, okay? This is the renal cortex, okay? This part's the renal cortex. This part is the renal medulla. The medulla consists of two things. These triangular shaped things called pyramids, okay? And in between the pyramids are the renal pyramids. The renal pyramids, in reality, is actually an extension of the cortex, but they're located in the medulla. Okay? And then the last part, okay, is the renal pelvis. The renal pelvis consists of the minor calyces and major calyces, okay, as well. Okay? So the minor calyces merge into major calyces, okay? And the major calyces combine into the renal pelvis right here. And then from the renal pelvis, it drains into the ureter. Okay? So, okay. Let's see, what else? Okay, so this pyramid, the tip of the pyramid is going to be called a papilla. Okay? That papilla is going to be where the urine actually leaks out. Okay, so the beginning of the urine will be the renal papilla into that chamber called the minor calyx. The minor calyx will merge together into the major calyx. The major calyces drain into the renal pelvis, which drains into the ureter. Okay. All right, the blood flow through the kidneys. Okay, so the first thing that goes through the kidney is the renal artery, right? The renal artery then splits into segmentals, so different segments of the kidney. Okay, the segments then turn okay, and turn into the interlobars, okay, and the interlobars turn into the arcuates, okay, arc, right, arcuates, okay. So here the aorta, the renal artery, the segmental artery, the interlobar, the arcuate, and then the cortical radiate artery, don't really have to worry about. And then here you do, because here we're inside the glomerulus. And we'll get back to that in a second, okay? Okay, don't have to worry about the nerve supply. Okay, the nephron is the functional unit of the kidney. Okay, there are over 1 million nephrons in each kidney. Okay, and there are three mechanisms, okay, of urine production. The first one's filtration, the second one's reabsorption, the third one's secretion. Okay, so let's look at what that means. Okay, so here's your blood supply. Okay, the first thing that has to happen is filtration. You filter stuff out of the blood, okay? And what you filter out is the filtrate. Okay? That comes directly out of the blood. The next part is tubular reabsorption. So it goes from the filtrate, okay, back into the capillary. It goes from the renal tubule into the capillary. Okay? The last one is tubular secretion. Tubular secretion is where you dump stuff from the capillary into the filtrate itself. So if there's something that you want to purposely get rid of, you take it from the bloodstream and you dump it directly into the tubules, and the tubules will get rid of them when you pee, okay? So if you guys have ever taken a urine test before, okay, you pee in a cup and it tests your pee for drug metabolites and stuff, that the reason why they're there is because of tubular secretion. We purposely dump it out of the bloodstream into there, and it ends up in our urine, okay? Okay, the nephron consists of a tubule and a corpuscle, so let's just talk about the corpuscle first. Okay. So here, okay, this ball is called a glomerulus. Okay, this tube that goes in is called the afferent glomerular arteriole. The one that comes out, the one that comes out is called efferent glomerular arteriole. Okay, so things are going to see how this tube is bigger than that tube. Okay, that creates pressure on the small tube. Okay, now in addition to that pressure, I have a whole bunch of little holes here, the fenestrations or pores. These are fenestrated capillaries. So now I have pressure and I have a whole bunch of holes. So now the fluid is going to leak out of the fenestrations. So anything that's small enough to leak out of that hole is going to leak out. Water is definitely going to leak out. Salt is definitely going to leak out. Urea, uric acid, and creatinine is definitely going to leak out. But other stuff will leak out as well. Okay, proteins, not proteins, amino acids. Okay, sugars will leak out. Okay, some of this stuff you want back. Okay, so the next part is reabsorption. Okay, and that happens in the renal tubules. Okay, the first thing it goes, okay, is the proximal convoluted tubule. okay, the proximal convoluted tubule will reabsorb most of the water, most of the salt, all of the glucose, and all of the amino acids. And you can see these guys have microvilli here, okay, just to reabsorb everything. So about 70% of everything that gets filtered out in the filtrate gets reabsorbed here in the proximal convoluted tubule. Okay, in the distal, we're not there yet. In this loop, it's either called the nephron loop or the loop of Henle, okay, Henle, okay, Henle. Water and salt get reabsorbed. Okay, now here is the distal convoluted tubule. The distal convoluted tubule is where it's not automatic. Okay, so if you have a lot of water, the distal convoluted tubule does nothing. If you don't have a lot of water, the distal convoluted tubule open up and reabsorb more water, but that requires energy. So you don't want to do that unless you actually need more to conserve more water, and that is under control of ADH, vasopressin, which we talked about earlier. Okay. All right. The proximal convoluted tubule and distal convoluted tubule is also responsible for tubular secretion, getting rid of stuff. Okay. What we usually get rid of is too much hydrogen if there's too acidic. Some bicarbonate if we need to get rid of that. Okay. So occasionally potassium. Okay. Okay. So this isn't as drawn. Okay. The nephrons really don't look like this. Like convoluted, they are really, really convoluted. So like you see weird sections all through. Okay. Okay. For us, 85% of our nephrons are something called cortical nephrons. Cortical nephrons look like this. Juxtaglomerular nephrons look like this. They go way deeper into the medulla of the kidney and they reabsorb a lot more water than this thing. Okay? If we were like desert animals, like desert rats or whatever, then we would have a lot more of these and a lot less of these. Okay? We need to reabsorb more water, that we use more these guys. Okay? Okay. Nephrons associate closely with two capillary beds. One is the glomerulus, and the second one is either the peritubular capillaries in the cortical nephrons or the vasa recta in the juxtaglomerular nephrons. Okay? All right. So just to explain what the glomerulus does, okay? The glomerulus generates 1 liter of fluid every 8 minutes. Okay, that is about more than 7 liters of water every hour. You're not peeing out 7 liters of water every hour. In fact, you don't have 7 liters of blood to pee out. Okay, the reason why this is not a problem is because 99% of the filtrate is actually reabsorbed by the tubules. Okay, the peritubular capillaries. Okay, they're adapted for absorption, so they reabsorb a lot of things very quickly. Okay, so all molecules secreted by the nephrons in the urine are from the peritubular capillaries, and for purpose of getting rid of them. Okay. Okay. So the vasa recta, you'll learn in physio, is part of the kidneys urine concentrating mechanism. Okay. All right. The next part. Okay. The Juxtaglomerular Complex. Okay. So here. Okay. It's the Juxtaglomerular Complex. Okay. Inside there, see how this is the afferent and efferent. The juxtaglomeralar complex is part of the proximal convoluted tubule. Okay. Here I can measure the blood pressure coming into here, and if it's too low, then I secrete the hormone renin. Renin increases blood pressure. Okay, it's part of the RAA mechanism. The macular DEXA measures the pressure of the kidney, and if it's too low, then it releases renin, which increases blood pressure. Okay. Okay. So the macular DEXA. Okay. The ureters are just a tube. There's nothing to know about them other than they're just a tube. Okay. The bladder. Okay. The bladder. Here's a bladder. Okay. The male and female bladder are slightly different shapes and different positions based on other stuff in there. Okay. So male bladder, female bladder. Okay. Both of them have the rugae, which are the folds. Okay. Both the male and female have this area called a trigone. This is made by the three things that open into the bladder, the two ureters, and the one urethra. Together they form a trigone. The trigone is important because UTIs actually persist in the trigone. Okay, the males, okay, have a much longer urethra, and the females have a shorter urethra. The male urethra, that leads the females to get more UTIs because if one is shorter, two, which they don't to point out for some reason, is literally closer to the anus, and therefore it's easier to get contamination from there to the female urethra than the male urethra. Okay. Okay. In males, the urethra has three separate parts. Okay. Prostatic urethra, intermediate urethra, and spongy urethra. In males, the urethra is a dual-purpose organ. It not only allows urine out, it also allows semen out. Okay. Okay. UTIs. Okay. More common in females. The burning sensation of the UTI, etc., etc. Okay. All right. So we'll skip the development of the kidneys. Okay. All right. So that ends that presentation.